In the 1960s, bikers sold marijuana at parties. It was small time, beer money, pocket change. But in the 1970s, they discovered methamphetamine, and everything changed. By 1985, the FBI launched massive raids across 11 states, arresting 133 members of the Hells Angels and seizing over $2 million worth of drugs. Today, outlaw motorcycle gangs control a billion-dollar drug empire. They work with Mexican cartels, manufacture industrial quantities of meth, and smuggle cocaine across borders. How did motorcycle clubs evolve into powerful drug lords? This is that story. After World War II, American veterans returned home searching for brotherhood, adrenaline, and a new sense of purpose. They founded on the open road and formed motorcycle clubs, the Hells Angels in 1948, the Outlaws in 1935, the Bandidos in 1966, and the Pagans in 1967, 1959. At first, these groups were exactly what they claimed to be: motorcycle enthusiasts and rebels who rejected the mainstream. The 1950s and 1960s defined outlaw biker culture. They became symbols of rebellion and counterculture. Hollywood amplified their image with films like The Wild One, starring Marlon Brando, in 1954. In 1966, Hunter S. Thompson's book, Hells Angels, brought them national fame. But behind the leather and chrome, things were changing. Bikers began committing small crimes, bar fights, theft, minor drug dealing, nothing organized, just chaos and thrill-seeking. The drug culture of the 1960s opened new opportunities. Marijuana, LSD, and pills were in high demand, and bikers had connections. They sold small amounts at concerts and parties. It wasn't serious, just extra income for beer and gas. As Sonny Barger, the founder of the Oakland Hells Angels chapter, later admitted, in the 60s it was all fun and games. Then came the 1970s, the decade that transformed motorcycle clubs from hobbyist groups into criminal organizations. Drugs became their main business, and it all started with one substance: methamphetamine. Meth wasn't new. It had been used during World War II to keep soldiers awake. In the 1960s, it was legally sold as diet and energy pills, known as speed. But by 1967, the darker side of meth surfaced. In San Francisco, Dr. David Smith, who ran a free clinic, began treating patients addicted to meth made by the Hells Angels. These users, called speed freaks, were violent and unpredictable. Smith's clinic even had to separate them from other drug users. When pharmaceutical companies stopped producing meth legally, a gap opened in the market, and the Hells Angels filled it. They were among the first to manufacture methamphetamine themselves, using phenyl-2-propanone, P2P, a chemical used to clean swimming pools. The process was simple and profitable. The Oakland chapter perfected it, setting up secret labs and distributing their own supply across California. This was the turning point. Bikers were no longer just selling drugs, they were producing them. Meth was cheap to make, easy to smuggle, and highly addictive. Profits skyrocketed from thousands to millions. When the U.S. government classified P2P as a controlled substance in 1980, the bikers simply adapted. They switched to ephedrine, a legal ingredient that made meth production even easier and more profitable. By the early 1980s, outlaw motorcycle gangs expanded nationwide, building meth empires and even experimenting with PCP. A 1989 raid in San Diego County revealed the scale of their operation. 29 meth labs shut down, nearly 100 people arrested, and over 800 pounds of ephedrine seized. San Diego became known as the meth capital of America, and the Hells Angels were at the center of it all. But meth was just the beginning. The next phase came through cocaine. During the 1970s and 1980s, Colombian cartels like Medellin and Cali dominated global cocaine production. They needed U.S. distributors, people with established networks, vehicles, and experience smuggling contraband. Outlaw biker gangs were the perfect partners. Clubs like the Hells Angels, Outlaws, Bandidos, and Pagans had multi-state chapters, cross-border connections, and businesses to launder money. They already handled meth distribution. Adding cocaine was a natural progression. The cartels offered cash or product in exchange for transportation. The bikers accepted. Soon, cocaine from Colombia entered the United States through biker-controlled routes in Florida, California, and New York. As U.S. authorities cracked down on Caribbean smuggling, Mexican traffickers stepped in, especially the Guadalajara cartel, led by Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo. They became the middlemen transporting Colombian cocaine across the U.S.-Mexico border. The biker gangs distributed it throughout American cities, collecting payments and expanding their empire. The partnership was mutually beneficial. Cartels gained reliable distributors, and bikers gained steady access to drugs and massive profits. By 1990, the Department of Justice estimated that outlaw motorcycle gangs controlled 40% of all dangerous drug trafficking in the United States, including 75% of meth production. Operation Rough Rider in 1985 exposed just how powerful they had become. FBI agent Kevin Bonner spent 26 months undercover, infiltrating the Hells Angels and making drug deals across 11 states. On May 2, 1985, the FBI launched a coordinated series of raids. 1,000 officers, 50 simultaneous operations, and 133 arrests. Agents seized cocaine, meth, marijuana, PCP, LSD, and weapons including Uzi submachine guns, rocket launchers, and even anti-tank weapons. Attorney General Edwin Meese called it proof of the value of undercover operations in dismantling major criminal enterprises. Time magazine later reported that the Hells Angels had evolved from a chaotic band of bikers into a disciplined, organized crime family on wheels, raking in millions through the drug trade. The magazine noted that outlaw bikers had adopted business school strategies, computerized management systems, and strict accountability for their dealers. Each chapter contributed a portion of its profits to a national treasury. FBI Special Agent James Greenleaf stated, "Motorcycle gangs have come a long way in recent years. They are far more sophisticated than most people would imagine, but Operation Rough Rider was only the beginning. Biker gangs adapted. They evolved. They became even more organized, more calculated, and more deeply connected to global drug cartels." The 1990s and 2000s marked the era of Mexican cartel dominance. As the Colombian cartels collapsed, Pablo Escobar's death in 1993, and the fall of the Cali cartel later in the decade, Mexican organizations filled the void. The Tijuana, Juarez, Gulf, and Sinaloa cartels rose to power. They needed American distribution networks, and biker gangs had already spent decades building them. The partnership deepened. Mexican cartels shipped multi-ton loads of cocaine across the border. Outlaw motorcycle gangs received those shipments and distributed them through their chapters across the United States. By 2007, Mexican cartels controlled nearly 90% of the cocaine entering the U.S., and much of it flowed through biker networks. The collaboration soon extended beyond cocaine. Mexican cartels began producing methamphetamine in super labs, on an industrial scale and with higher purity than the bikers' homemade versions. Outlaw motorcycle gangs shifted from manufacturing to purchasing Mexican meth, which was cheaper, purer, and carried less legal risk. Still, some clubs maintained their own production capabilities. The Hells Angels continued operating meth labs in California. The Outlaws manufactured in the Midwest. They often mixed their homemade supply with Mexican imports. The ATF estimated biker gangs controlled half of Oregon's illegal drug market and over a third of North Carolina's. Their influence stretched even further. They maintained connections with Colombian cocaine traffickers, Italian mafia groups, the Aryan Brotherhood, and Asian crime syndicates. Canadian journalist Julian Scher once described the Hells Angels as the McDonald's of organized crime, a franchise model with global reach, standardized operations, and billion-dollar revenues. From 1994 to 2002, Quebec became the epicenter of a bloody turf war between the Hells Angels, Rock Machine, and Bandidos. Over 160 people were killed, 84 bombings took place, and 130 arson attacks were recorded. The conflict was driven by control over cocaine and meth distribution and access to Montreal's port, a major smuggling hub. Tragically, an 11-year-old boy was killed when a bomb intended for gang rivals exploded near his home. The Canadian government responded with sweeping anti-gang laws, mass arrests, and large-scale asset seizures. Yet the drug trade continued. Today's biker gangs operate as transnational criminal organizations. The Hells Angels have chapters in 92 U.S. locations and thousands of members worldwide. The Bandidos operate in 28 countries, and the Outlaws have 441 chapters across 43 nations. These are no longer traditional motorcycle clubs. They are multinational drug trafficking empires that happen to ride motorcycles. The U.S. Department of Justice classifies them as major organized crime threats. The FBI estimates outlaw motorcycle gangs generate more than $1 billion annually from illegal activities. Modern biker gangs deal directly with cartels, eliminating middlemen. They purchase cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl in bulk at wholesale prices. They launder their profits through motorcycle shops, tattoo parlors, bars, restaurants, construction firms, and real estate investments. Their operations mirror corporate efficiency, using shell companies, wire transfers, and cash-heavy businesses to conceal profits. Drug money funds everything. The violence, the territorial wars, and their global expansion. Biker gangs now function like corporations. They maintain hierarchies with international presidents, regional leaders, and chapter presidents. Drug operations follow business principles: supply chain management, distribution logistics, quality control, and market analysis. The Hells Angels specialize in methamphetamine production and distribution, while also trafficking cocaine, hashish, heroin, LSD, MDMA, PCP, and prescription drugs. Regional specialization has emerged. California chapters focus on meth manufacturing in counties like San Bernardino and Modoc. Midwest chapters handle cocaine shipments from Mexican sources. East Coast groups like the Pagans and Outlaws control heroin distribution in partnership with Dominican and Mexican suppliers. Canadian chapters dominate meth production in British Columbia, importing precursor chemicals from China. New Zealand chapters produce meth domestically using materials from Chinese triads. South African Hells Angels introduced meth to that country in 1997 and turned it into a major export business. Every continent now hosts biker-run drug networks in Europe, Asia, Australia, South America, and Africa. The scale is staggering. In California, one Hells Angels operation distributed thousands of kilograms of methamphetamine. Its leader, Otis Garrett, earned millions before being sentenced to life in prison in 1992. Another operation in 1985 seized over $2 million in drugs during a multi-state raid. In the 1990s, 9 Hells Angels members were caught manufacturing meth on an industrial scale between California and Nevada. The pattern repeats across every major club: Bandidos, Outlaws, Pagans, Mongols, Vagos, all evolving from motorcycle enthusiasts into global drug trafficking syndicates. Law enforcement continues to respond with massive RICO prosecutions, asset seizures, and long prison sentences. But the business model survives. When leaders are arrested, replacements rise. When chapters are dismantled, new ones form. The profits are simply too large to stop. Methamphetamine costs about $1,500 per kilogram to produce in jungle labs and sells for up to $50,000 on U.S. streets. Cocaine follows similar profit margins. Those economics ensure the cycle continues. Today, fentanyl is the new frontier. Mexican cartels produce synthetic opioids and ship them through established networks. Biker gangs distribute them on American streets, pressing counterfeit pills and selling pure fentanyl powder. The U.S. drug market is worth an estimated $153 billion annually, and outlaw motorcycle gangs claim a significant share. The transformation from small-time marijuana dealers to global cartel partners took more than 6 decades. From post-war motorcycle clubs to billion-dollar criminal empires, they still wear the leather vests, the patches, and ride Harley-Davidsons, but the image hides the truth. Behind the brotherhood rhetoric lies a modern, organized, and violent drug syndicate. They manufacture narcotics, launder billions, and kill to protect their profits. The journey from beer money drug sales to cartel partnerships represents one of the most successful evolutions in American organized crime. Outlaw motorcycle gangs learned what La Cosa Nostra understood decades earlier. Drugs mean money, money means power, and power means survival. And they've applied that lesson with ruthless efficiency. Today, federal law enforcement continues a relentless battle. Raids, arrests, prosecutions, and seizures. But the bikers adapt. They evolve. They endure. Because the drugs keep flowing, the money keeps coming, and the riders keep rolling. Not for freedom or brotherhood anymore, but for profit, power, and the empire they built.